China is taking AI computing into space, and it's not a metaphor. This is a real government-backed push to shift large-scale AI workloads into orbit, because U.S. export controls are making Nvidia's advanced chips harder to obtain. Instead of slowing down, China is planning to move AI training and inference off the planet entirely. This video is sponsored by Stonefly. More on that at the end of the video. Several Chinese companies are now building what they're calling space supercomputers. The idea is simple. If data centers on Earth can't scale because of land, water, and power limitations, then skip those limitations entirely and build massive compute clusters in low Earth orbit. Up there, cooling is far easier, solar energy is abundant, and infrastructure doesn't have to be constrained by the physical demands of conventional power grids. One of the most aggressive players is Zhongke Tiansuan, also known as Comospace, founded just last year in 2024. They're designing a space-based AI supercomputer that will initially operate from low Earth orbit. But the long-term ambition is far bigger. A colossal orbital data center 700 to 800 kilometers above Earth with more than 1 gigawatt of computing capacity. That's far beyond what most national data centers can pull off on the ground. The company says its first demonstrator satellite could launch by the end of this year, though early 2026 is more realistic. And while the public messaging is tempered, engineers at the Beijing Astrofuture Institute are stressing that this is just a first small step. The long-term roadmap spans 3 deployment phases, culminating in a massive orbital computing hub by 2035. China isn't the only one experimenting here. The Zhejiang laboratory is developing a mini constellation of AI satellites known as 3-body. This cluster of 12 spacecraft will reportedly reach 100 quintillion operations per second, an almost unimaginable number, and will be able to process part of its data directly in orbit before sending results down to Earth. The attraction is clear. Space offers natural advantages. Passive cooling becomes trivial in a vacuum. Solar panels can scale without the constraints of land. And because satellites don't rely on terrestrial grids, they're not limited by fossil fuel infrastructure or energy shortages. The goal isn't to replace ground computing entirely, but to distribute workloads. Some data can be processed in orbit, while the heavier, latency-sensitive tasks remain on Earth. It's a hybrid strategy that could expand China's computing capacity dramatically without needing Nvidia's high-end chips. This strategy also has geopolitical implications. Pushing AI computation into space opens the door to a global arms race over orbital data centers. U.S. export controls may have accelerated China's innovation, and now countries like the United States, India, and Japan may feel pressure to respond. If AI becomes a space-based competition, national AI capabilities won't just depend on chip supply, they'll depend on who can launch, protect, and scale orbital supercomputers the fastest. The bigger question is whether this becomes the new frontier of AI infrastructure. If China succeeds, the definition of a data center may change entirely. Instead of massive buildings filled with GPUs, imagine constellations of satellites quietly training models above our heads. That's the world China is racing toward. And if the US doesn't adapt, it may find itself competing in a domain where traditional chip restrictions don't have the same limiting power. And now a word from our sponsor. Get a 70 terabytes iSCSI and Fiber Channel SAN storage appliance for $9,995. Contact sales at stonefly.com to schedule a demo. Subscribe for more cybersecurity news. Thank you for watching.